Utah Department of Commerce has selected a new director of the Utah Office of Artificial Intelligence Policy. This is brand new. And the new director is Zachary Boyd, who is here with us today, along with Margaret Bussey, the executive director of the Utah Department of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us today. So for people who aren't familiar with this, tell us a little bit about this new position, Margaret, that has been created, that you mentioned has never been done before in any state.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's great to be here with you. So this all came about because Senator Cullimore and Representative Jefferson Moss put together a task force to try to start looking at what we should be doing in Utah after ChatGPT released its first large language model. So a bunch of us got together and started to think about what is it that we need to do here in Utah. We know there's a lot of anxiety out there about this new technology, but also a lot of excitement. And so we came up with really 3 objectives that we wanted to achieve for the state of Utah, of course, under the leadership of Governor Cox. And those 3 objectives are encourage innovation. We want Utah to be a place of innovation for these new technologies. Second, to protect the public. We know there really are potential harms that can come out of this technology. And the third, and maybe even the most important, is to be able to have a place within government that allows us to observe and learn as we go. We know these technologies are moving rapidly. We want to be able to stay on top of them. And so that's really what the Office of Artificial Intelligence Policy is designed to do, those 3 things.
Zachary, you mentioned being approached about this. What was your reaction when people first started discussing this with you as a possibility? You said that even before you were approached, you were discussing this when they were creating this position.
Sure, I was part of the feedback group that helped make sure this legislation was crafted and was reasonable. Being invited to take the position is a big change for me. My background is as an academic researcher. I run a lab at BYU that studies machine learning and artificial intelligence. But I think this is the moment when it's right for someone like me with a real technical background in this area to come into government, and we're all interested in creating the right regulatory environment right now where these technologies can take off in a way that is safe and creates the future we want for Utah and everywhere else.
I think AI is kind of the Wild West right now. There's a lot happening, and I think a lot of people get nervous at the same time. There's so much potential, but we don't know what to do with it at this point. And I think a lot of people have questions right now. What are you most interested in addressing right now? What do you think Utah needs to address right now?
Well, so this is a very new office. We have lots of ideas of what is probably important. We know that consumer privacy, consumer protection is important, safety of AI, and also making sure that the regulatory environment is clear enough that companies can actually build and prosper in Utah. But our first task, this office is only 2 days old right now, is to begin gathering input from stakeholders, especially companies trying to do business in Utah, and make sure we really understand which things matter the most to them right now and start building those relationships.
Okay, Margaret, this office houses an artificial intelligence lab. Can you explain a little bit on what's happening there to us?
Yeah, and the lab is really what makes Utah innovative in this space from a legal standpoint, from a law standpoint. We're the first in the country to do anything like this. The lab really has 2 purposes. The first is to run a bunch of what we are calling learning agendas. Basically, we want to learn about this thing, consumer protection, consumer privacy, transparency of the models. We want to learn about this. We're going to bring in a lot of stakeholders, experts, companies to help us learn, and then we're going to generate recommendations to the legislature on what the appropriate guardrails are for us to feel that we are safe in operating these environments and with this technology. That's the first purpose. The second purpose is to be able to offer regulatory relief to companies that are trying to experiment with these models. There's a lot of uncertainty about how these models are going to play out, and so because of that, companies are worried about bumping up against regulations and regulatory penalties. And so coming to this office will allow them to potentially get some regulatory relief so they can have more certainty about their models.
That's a lot to tackle for 2 people. I'm assuming you're putting together a team as well?
Yep, we're trying to bring together technical, legal, policy, and business expertise to really bring as much information as possible to these policies and efforts.
What do you see for the future of Utah when it comes to AI?
Well, I mean, hopefully this office gives Utah a huge strategic advantage compared to other states, because companies can know that we have a sensible regulatory framework. We have officers in the government who are thinking about this all the time, but interested in building relationships and making sure that the way we do things makes sense and enables flourishing of the companies that come here.
It's so fascinating. Zachary, Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so curious to see what comes out of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.